Thank you for your attention and the opportunity to show this project again. Republica is a mixed-use open city block that reinvents the way we are going to live, work and come together in the future. It's a prototype of a new kind of urban design and architectural mixed scale, something in between both, and a new way of real estate development. It's an energy cooperative that produces its own energy and also resells its own energy in between the owners and users of the building. So it's autonomous and independent of the city electric grid. It's a circular project that uses rainwater. It includes all kinds of natural elements that boost biodiversity. It's also circular in its energy use and uses circular materials. So in many ways, it's a showcase of ambitions for a more sustainable and more social future. It's based in Amsterdam, in the north of Amsterdam, on a plot that is in the middle of an industrial neighborhood, the old harbor of Amsterdam, and it, in that way, was one of the first projects that worked as a catalyst to transform this brownfield site into a lively new mixed-use city district. And my client, who is a very creative person and never had done real estate before, but bought an old factory plot, asked me how would I approach this. And instead of doing one big building, which would made him a lot of money, I proposed to do a network of spaces and a series of 6 buildings, each with their own program, so that this block could evolve naturally as an open system, with each building having its specific community that evolved independently of the other units. So a test ground for different programs, but also a kind of introverted city oasis where you are protected from the elements of this rough, rainy brownfield site as long as the rest of the area isn't developed. So I opened up the city block into this kind of network of spaces and buildings and brought the city in. So actually we made public a private property and allowed for the community living around and coming to grow around this building to enter the plot. It's built on a podium of 1.5 meters above ground. Inside is a parking lot. Energy Cooperative has a neighborhood battery there. And it has charging points for electric vehicles and bikes. And the micro city built on top of it is completely free of logistic functions. So all the trash, energy, storage functions and infrastructure elements are put in the garage. This makes this block permeable, and you can discover it in your own way. There is not a fixed route, but there is many different little streets and alleys and pathways you can follow. It also connects to the surrounding neighborhood with little bridges, bringing the neighborhood in. So you see here that the long building is a short stay hotel with a sauna and yoga club on the roof, which is independent of the hotel, so it becomes also a public function. It has basically it's open for the whole neighborhood, not only for the hotel guests. In the middle you see a Superlofts tower. I won the WAF award in 2017 for residential project of the year with the Superlofts Houthavens, and in the meantime we've built Superlofts in 7 cities. Superlofts are apartments that people can co-create. They can co-design their interiors and together define the shared spaces they want to use. And that forms the heart of the development, this little skinny tower. In front you see a restaurant with co-working areas on top and with small studios for short stay on top. And on the left side you see the step building, which are luxury apartments, and in the back there is a block of social housing. It's based mostly on open building principles, separating the structure from infill and facade systems, allowing the building to transform over time in use. For example, the hotel can be easily transformed into residential without having to make any demolishments. And the super lofts are customized by the owners who fell in love with the idea that they can create their own future dream life in this kind of spatial framework that I offered them. So that attracted a pioneering community to this site that then attracted more commercially oriented audiences with paying higher prices on the building adjacent to it. So this kind of pioneering catalyst of super lofts is something that we use in many locations. It brings the most creative sides out of people because they can design their future dream life and make everything possible they can imagine. So we also guide them in this process. You see the skinny tower has all the infrastructure on the outside, making it super rational and super good ratio of GFA, which made it possible to be so skinny, allowing the sun to penetrate deeply into the block. If this would be a commercial development, it would have been a very fat tower and there would be no sun coming into the block. But because my client wasn't a professional developer, he allowed me to convince him to make this skinny tower, which allowed all these open spaces around it. And by the way, the tower has the Corbusian, because I also had Corbu in my first and second year, still loving his work, and we made the bayonet type in this tower with 2 micro corridors, and for the rest there is no circulation space inside the block. So here you see the public functions, I should say commercial functions. There is the roof pool that is heated with the sauna and yoga club and a restaurant that is very difficult to activate normally on the 5th floor, but here it's super popular and it's now the most popular place in Amsterdam North. You can, for €8, you can use the swimming pool with your kids. It's kind of like a Soho House kind of atmosphere, but then but then not for rich people, basically. It's for everyone. But it is, and it's super diverse. It's fantastic. And residents get a discount, people living in the block. There's also co-working areas that allow people to rent meeting rooms, to work there, and there's obviously a mobility hub. The energy cooperative is based on blockchain technology. So with the microgrid, the system sells and trades energy between the residents before it sells the surplus energy back to the grid. And obviously most of it is stored on a battery that is used then at night. This makes the project independent of the net and therefore solves an issue of net congestion, which is a big issue in Holland. Then this is a section of all the circular and sustainable strategies included. So it shows the whole closing of cycles of energy, materials, waste. Also domestic waste is being repurposed. So the bio-waste is going through a grinder that you throw into your kitchen, into a tube, into a machine in the basement that distracts energy out of it. Biodiversity inclusion in planters that also have ventilation ducts for the parking garage integrated underneath, and they collect rainwater. And they are also places to meet. And all these ground floor areas are open and very transparent. Some are working spaces, others are restaurants or gym and co-working areas. Obviously, the photos show a situation of it still being not much in use at the beginning. Now, where still some vacant commercial spaces, but it's getting more and more used, and it's becoming more and more interesting. Here you see in the image on the right that the building is elevated and connected to the public street with kind of what we call the Spanish stairs of Buiksloterham. It's this repurposed natural stone steps with a slope for people physically challenged entering the deck. And that is now also the most popular skateboard ramp of Amsterdam North. It's the middle image on the right side that shows this. And yeah, this is basically the result. It will grow over time, like a building should. It's a framework for living, so it just creates conditions for growth and for adaptation. And we are looking forward to for this to flourish more and become more and more lively in the future. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. So was there a zoning code or any building code that you had to work with? And if so, did it help you figure out how to lay out your block, or did you have to fight to lay it out?
Very little. The only law code was FSI 3, and taking in consideration the view and sun exposure of neighboring houses in the back, which sued us and stopped the project for 3 years when we won and then could continue, because it could have been much worse what we have done than if we could have placed volumes in the back and blocked the views, but the only tall volume is basically in the middle, and even that neighbors in the back thought it was a good reason to go to court, which is really a shame. In the Netherlands, many of projects are being blocked by people just wanting money, because that's what they want at the end. But we didn't pay any money and won the lawsuit. The client didn't mind to wait, and then it moved forward. So the only code that was at place was the FSI 3.
And was there a parking requirement, or was that voluntary?
0.3 per apartment. 0.3 cars per apartment.
Oh.
So a lot of cars.
A lot of cars.
Yeah, that's why we have the podium.
Okay.
Mark, maybe I can ask you one quick question. You know, it's really exciting to hear that you have a client who never did something like this before, and it's obviously something exciting for you. Whenever there's this sort of mixed use project, it's in some ways, it stands for the idea of urbanity of the city because of its mixed use. I wonder if you can say what do you feel are the differences, innovations, inventions that are happening in this project that contributes to the kind of public side of this, like the ground floor, the state of interaction between the different blocks? Did you try something in this case that you wanted to initiate, instigate more interaction on the ground level? What are some of the specific ingredients?
Yeah, definitely the idea to make different buildings instead of one big building is the main idea. That no, it doesn't move anymore. So the main idea to have on the ground floor different functions, very open and transparent, that interconnect with each other in the public realm visually, is supposed to create this kind of interactive, lively domain. You could almost see it, the floor plan as kind of a nollie map of how we brought public domain onto the deck, blending inside and outside. But since many of these spaces were empty when we took the photos, you don't really yet feel the urban liveliness of pedestrian use. But definitely this summer it was already very lively, and we think that as more of these commercial spaces get occupied, this will only enhance that experience. So it's a strategy of functional zoning and transparency, allowing functions also to use the public space. However, that is still
evolving.
Is something to develop, because we don't see any tables or anything outside, because it's something that has to grow over time. There are 6 home or owner organizations hanging in kind of a Christmas tree of owners. Each building has been sold to different groups of owners, and they have to mediate about the use of the public space. Mm-hmm. So they come together every 6 months. So these steps will happen over time. It's a process. It's a cooperative, so they need to negotiate what is allowed, what is not allowed, and that will grow over time.
Great, thank you. I know there are lots of other questions. Maybe Peter and then yes.
Yeah, I would want to come back to the original proposition of the podium with the other world on top of the podium. And I think to many of us, the charm of Amsterdam is its coziness. And then, of course, you have industrial areas or edge areas where you have general purpose modern architecture. And I've always thought that's the problem or issue in Amsterdam. But I think I'm intrigued by this once, and the Japanese do this sometimes, that you establish a podium, and then you say the world on top of the podium has new objectives, new relationships. On the other hand, when you have then a family of buildings, of this sort of number of buildings, then ask the secondary question, which is to what extent they share a language. To what extent do they discriminate between activity and form, activity and, dare I say, decoration or stylization? To what extent do they then use historical anecdotes, so to speak, to differentiate between somewhere where you sleep and somewhere where you work and somewhere where you eat, etc.? And of course, intellectually, once you establish the podium, almost anything is possible. I mean, within the limits of laws and so on. And I'm intrigued about that because it's a very subtle issue. It's a subtle issue, but you've made a bold first move. Does that then enable you to seek further subtlety, or is there some part of your architectural instinct that says, no, it's got to read as one? And I think this is a very interesting issue, but with the particularization that Amsterdam has such a fine grain that the brain is looking for fine grain even in things that are deliberately not.
Mm-hmm. Before you answer that, maybe I can go to Yosuke as well, and then you can respond to.
Yeah, I have one question, because I think you explained about how you create micro city inside of the site, break the space, like create a different scale. But I'm curious how your consideration about surrounding existing city. So any physical connection or a view corridor or use of the material to have kind of relationship with surrounding.
Okay, interesting questions. So to start with the last, all the materials are inspired by the industrial character of the harbor of Amsterdam. The bricks are repurposed bricks found locally and then reorganize them in an aesthetic, pleasant way to soften this industrial character. And that's also maybe the beginning of an answer of your question. I think it's this tension between robust industrial spaces and buildings and a sensuality of a contemporary, sustainable residential domain. A tension between, let's say, robustness and timelessness, and between informality and sensuality and tactility on the other side. And we used a dimension system and composition system based on grids that link the composition of all the buildings. So we called it a creative grid. All the proportions are related to each other, so you feel that they're kind of family of each other, although they're also differentiated. So we didn't push contrast using as many materials as possible. They are careful considerations, almost like writing a text in testing what would be the right material next to the other one, and then adapting each until they feel comfortable next to each other. And this search was an organic process, looking for proportion, for material identity, testing different scenarios in models and physical models. And it took 9 years to develop this. So basically time had a positive effect in making it more human. And I don't know how to answer your first question exactly, but if you walk in the Jordaan area in Amsterdam, where you feel these kind of small-scale spaces, there is something of a memory, or when you're here, you have something of a memory of the Jordaan, where there's a surprising sequences of larger and smaller spaces, surprising gardens you suddenly meet, and maybe that's the closest to an answer to your first question.
Mark, thank you.
Thank you.